Okay, so for those that are tuned in, Black and Nuanced in HD is my podcast video series, and I have Orlando Lima. He is my newest episode. And these are just follow-up conversations with my talent. And a lot has happened with since we last spoke. At the time, there wasn't an election going on.
There wasn't.
You and I literally watched it at least the first night of it. And
Yeah.
a lot has happened since then. But we're going to get to the election part. I want to talk about you and the things that you're working on. For those that haven't seen the episode, you can go to my Instagram account, Black Nuanced Pod. Full episode is in full effect. We talked about Black women, Black men, how Black women can show up, or how Black men can show up more for Black women.
I've been thinking about this.
Have you?
Yeah, big time, big time.
Okay, so wait, you have a follow-up response to what you said in the episode?
Yeah, I have tons of responses about the whole situation in general. So
okay,
but I'll go ahead, ask your question.
Okay,
and we'll get to my thoughts.
So Black women really showed up in a way. Actually, we're going into the election, so because some things are tied, but Black women showed up in a way that I think people weren't surprised about. So I want to kind of get your thoughts about that. Some Black men had some things to say. I also think that there was some stats. I don't know how accurate all of them were.
Hold on. Keep going.
Okay.
Because I got, you know what? I'm getting my notes. It's that important.
No, I need you to get it. Shout out to the family that's in here, my brother and my mom. But I think, I think the clip that I posted, for those that haven't seen it, it's on my IGTV or my Instagram, Georgette Pierre. I thought the point that you made about how Black men can show up for Black women was so poignant. And then I think about how Black men, the increase or the percentage of Black men increased on those that voted for 45. So with Black women showing up for Biden, what are your thoughts now about the same battle, different war comment with Black men and Black women?
Hold up. I'm literally getting all my notes because today I had more time to think about this. I wrote some things down. Oh wait, that's a dinosaur train, so we're not doing that. These are all my kids' games on the other machine. All right. So, okay, here it is here. Oh, wow, this is like a tome. Literally, like I could read this. It's like a speech. All right. So, a couple things. Wow, okay, first of all right, so yes, you came over. Let's give everyone the backstory. You came over. It turned out you didn't have anything to do on election night. We were just chilling in the crib. You don't live that far from us. So you came over for some really delicious cheeseburgers made by me and some okay chicken wings made by, no, I'm kidding. And we watched the whole results, and we kind of had an idea before it was all going to happen that like it wasn't really going to be fully settled that night.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we're looking at the map, and it looked pretty typically like what the map has been in the United States. Who knows what's going on in Florida? Everybody's just trying to shoot each other down there, and what was going to happen in the Midwest. And then all the other states seemed pretty the way that they always been, with some slight change, right? So, like, clearly Texas is getting younger and, more liberal, progressive, more people of color down there. But I think overall what we saw at the end of the election was essentially that, women of color in many ways delivered this victory to the Democratic Party, right? Well, let's take it back one step. People of color, and in many cases, people in big cities, in states that are surrounded by a lot of not even suburban, but rural areas, delivered this election for Biden, right? So whether that's Detroit and the surrounding state of Michigan, or Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin, Philadelphia, and the state of Pennsylvania, and Atlanta, and the state of Georgia. And then you got to go and look at like, how did that happen? Like, how did these people get registered? And while I think, Trump bears some blame on his own for like rolling out a game plan that ultimately didn't help him win, the reality is that people of color in those big cities where a lot of people live overwhelmingly voted for Biden and therefore delivered those states for him. And, As of right now, for all the naysayers, right? Like, there's no evidence that like any fraud happened. So let's just get rid of that right there. So then the next
Mm-hmm.
question you're going to ask yourself is, how and why did all these people show up? And in my opinion, you know, obviously Stacey Abrams is the example that everyone points to. It's that Black women in particular have been really active in these communities, whether it's registering people to vote, clarifying the voting laws, proactively as Democrats in those states working in government to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to vote. They basically delivered this victory for the Democrats. And then you look at the rest of like what the Democratic strategy was and all the people who didn't deliver, right? So like John Kasich, like white guy Republican from Ohio, was insistent on, you know, I'm going to vote for Biden this time, and you know, was supposed to deliver Ohio, and like that didn't happen at all.
Mm.
You know, and like the Lincoln Road Project, you know, that was they were supposed to help change conservatives, right? The whole thought process amongst white people was, if we can just get these middle of the road white folks to vote Democrat, then like we got this victory won. And what they found out was that kind of didn't happen. Those people basically voted the same as they did the last time. The difference was that like a bunch of, you know, people of color and younger people came out and like delivered votes for Biden. So, you know, you just have to look at that right now. So let's just look at like the broader scope of everything we believe, which is like when you win, right, you get the recognition and you get the seat at the table, you get the voice. And I think one of the issues we've had for the longest time is like, you know, when Black people help do these things, they don't ultimately get the voice and the seat at the table. And that's kind of the thing that always annoys us about the Democrats. So in this case, I just think it's become very clear like how important, you know, Black women in particular are to these movements and to progress. And so they need to be rewarded they need to be appreciated and rewarded as such. And so as a Black man, I just started to think about it, and I was like, you know, because we live in a capitalist country, we always think, oh yeah, like put yourself first, like get your own money, pull other people up. But I think as Black men, we have to think differently about it, and we have to think about, instead of trying to like get ours and then be in a position where Black women help us raise ourselves up and then we help everyone else, we actually got to go the opposite. So we instead need to be proactively trying to elevate Black women and women of color, even if it means like passing up a benefit for ourselves, because I think ultimately that's like how the change is going to come. You know, the change is going to come through women, period, because this is all these issues we got in this country are intergenerational. And if they're intergenerational, it means it's something that you need to work on, not just for yourself and with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
but with your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a heavier lift and a more difficult lift, and also not as, you know, as intelligent if we're thinking about it. If we think that men are going to pass that down through their family, when we know that, like, you know, the majority of caregiving in all these families comes through the women and the moms. So we just got to think about it differently, instead of being like, oh, you know, we got to be in the lead and Black women support us. I think we have to just very adamantly and proactively be like, no, we need to put these Black women in the lead. And the more I started to think about it, I just started to think about like my whole media career, and why, even if it's been inadvertently, I've just always thought like, oh, I gotta have like women of color on my team. And the reason I always want to have women of color on my team is because it's like they get things done. You know, they just get things done, and they're willing to do more. They're willing to work harder, and they often do it for less. Right? This is just like the story of what our economy is. They do it for less, and they do it with less resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it just started to all puzzle into my head, I was like, oh, so like this is really who we should be empowering to take the lead. Because on the one hand, just based on gender alone, like we need to start facilitating this intergenerational, you know, change. And then two, like if we're just talking about, you know, whether you want to use a team sports analogy, or I'll try to use another one that I think makes sense, that it makes more sense for women. It's like you put your best players on the field, right? So like if you're playing a team sport and you're out there playing ball and you're passing the ball to one of your friends and he's throwing up bricks, then like You stop passing him the ball, and he recognizes why he's not getting the ball, why he's not getting shots. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You pass the ball to the guy who's on fire, and you just let that guy cook. You know, it's the same thing as like, I think if you're like a group of women and you're in a business setting and you have to do a presentation or anything in front of a group of men in a corporate setting, like, you don't put your least capable woman at the front of the table to do the presentation, because you know that what is going to result in is a bunch of like mansplaining and nonsense. So, right, as a team, when you see teams of women working in corporate America, they will tend to make sure that they have their strongest, right, people up front, so that they can kind of combat the thing that they already know is coming, which is a bunch of BS from dudes in most cases who may know less or don't know what they're talking about. And so I just think, like, proactively, we just have to think about it like that. So as a black man, like, I just really want to think about, okay, how do we finally, right? The thing we talked about last time was like, black women don't get any credit and they're not seen. So now the issue is not just how we get them credit, because yeah, everybody wants a pat on the back and be told they're good. But in most cases in our capitalist society, credit for having done a good job comes with promotions, is followed by a promotion. And so we're in a never-ending loop where, like, we give black women credit, but then they don't reap the benefit of that.
Right.
And
right.
so if black men aren't going to stand up and say, hey, you know, I think actually TV timeout on this, like, we need to really focus on these people who are doing it right, who happen to be women of color, like, that's what we need to do. We need to be more focused on that, as opposed to buying into kind of the capitalist game of like every man for himself.
Well, I think the other thing is, before I get into this next question, I think the other reality that some black men don't want to admit to is like the benefits of patriarchy, right? Some men will be like, oh, well, we got this target on our back. So I was just like, well, you never wake up every day having to worry about being sexually assaulted, raped. You also get paid more on the dollar than I do. And so I think that what people, will lead into my next question is that I think there's also some type of, I just think it's just like acknowledging. Remember how when we were talking about corporations, you were like, certain white people just don't want to cop to not promoting certain people of color. But I also think like some black men don't want to admit how they benefit just by being a male in this society that is driven by, that's male driven or white male driven.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people aren't, like, the fundamental issue there, right? And we see this is kind of the bedrock of racism and prejudice, is like, people don't want to cop to their advantage.
Yeah.
They want to say all day long how, like, it's all equal and we all started and it was all equal, but that's not necessarily the case, right? And even in this case where we want to say, all right, like, racism is a real factor for men of color, and I know because I've experienced it, like, there still are other things that I've benefited from based on being a man and not being a woman, when that has matched with the culture of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are other times when it totally hasn't, and it's been a detriment. But in most cases, being a man matches with the culture of success and promotion. And so, yeah, man, I just think we can't think about it like that individually. Like, oh, I need to become a executive vice president. We need to think about it like, what's going to be the most intelligent group strategy for, you know, our race, our ethnicity, in order to not, you know, and that's just to move the entire, you know, ball forward, push the whole thing forward. It's not just about like, oh, like, how do we blow black people up? But I fundamentally think the road through fixing all this stuff is going to be through women, and in particular, women of color.
I agree. For those that are just jumping in, this is my conversation with Orlando Lima, co-founder of the modern liquor store Taste Select Repeat for Black and Nuanced in HD. It's the video version of my podcast. So the next question.
All right.
What are the specific needs of our community and this country that the administration, Biden-Harris, need to focus on, or what would you like to see them focus on? Because there's a lot of things flying.
Oh.
And then people already feel like certain things are not going to be as progressive as we need them to be. But just what do you think from at least an uplifting standpoint?
So I got a whole list. Like, months ago, I got another whole list. But months ago, when like COVID happened, I started making this list on my phone of like when something would happen, of things I would like to be changed about it. So you know, as small as like when de Blasio started being a total bozo and couldn't get anything done with either the, you know, the police situation or the
Mm-hmm.
COVID education situation, I put on my list new mayor for New York City. Now it got right. So like, you know, I had on there like it's a bunch of different stuff, right? And so here's the one thing I want to talk about, like post this election, what I've seen so far. And I think this is also like it's a hint of what we were just talking about in terms of like winners get a seat at the table and losers don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the election gets called for Biden, everybody goes out and celebrates, and then on Sunday they have all the like news shows and they get some of these Republicans on, Romney and Kasich and all that, and it's like the first thing that all these guys are saying is, well, you know, we got to figure out like what it is. We're not for a liberal agenda, and we're not for socialism and this and that and all the stupid dog whistle keywords they throw out. But this whole attitude that they're like, we got to work together. I was just sitting there like, yo, so these dudes, number one, haven't changed, and number two, haven't recognized that they've lost. Because I'm like, what? In what other scenario in the world is it that like you come in second and then you like get to sit down and have a seat at the table and make decisions, right? Like when you win the Super Bowl, does the president call up the team that came in second and be like, yo, you guys also get to come to the White House and like take the pictures and do it? No, it's only the winners. Only the winners get the reward. And so this whole idea, man, the Republicans, they never change. Their whole racket is very simple. When they win, they say they have a mandate to govern and like screw everyone else and we don't have to consult you. And when they lose, they always say, oh, we got to work together and we need to have a seat at the table. Like you can't have it both ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
the winners have won and the losers have lost. And this goes exactly back to my point about Black women and women of color, which is, so if we're now going to decide who gets to help craft this policy and like move the agenda forward, why do people who lost or who didn't deliver any votes for the winning side get to have any say in what we do moving forward? Why aren't we turning some of that power and say over to the people who actually won the election?
Mm.
Right. So like, I can't even understand why anyone needs to listen to John Kasich, you know, or whatever his name is. He was the governor of Ohio. I can't understand. I mean, Mitt Romney is a whole other thing because he's a Republican. But why does anyone have to listen to him? Why shouldn't we be out here shouldn't the Democrats be saying, we really need to listen to Stacey Abrams? Because Stacey Abrams mobilized a bunch of people to vote, and that's how we won. But I just think that is part and parcel of what we were talking about on the pod originally, which is like what I was trying to say about how we view Black women in society as being like an afterthought and being inconsequential. So you can both deliver a national election for a major political party and then also get no credit when it's done, right? And then also when it's done after having gotten no credit, not get a seat at the table to help make the decisions because they've now decided, oh, we got to sit down with Mitt Romney and John Kasich. Well, why?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just that's the thing right there. That's like the crux of it to me, that we got to like get over that. And we have to finally get into a scenario where we're all going to say credit where credit is due. And in particular, I'm pointing this out, not because I'm, you know, some kind of hardcore Democrat or like anti-Republican. I'm actually not registered with a political party at all. And, you know, I vote my conscience. I do my research. But this is something I noticed. The reason I used to be a Democrat several decades ago, and I unregistered from their party because I was like, people of color are not getting a return on their investment for what they're putting into this party. And that part is the part that I totally understand about the stuff that like people like Ice Cube and all these other people say. Now, I don't agree with their actions, but I get what they're saying, which is like, yo, these people ask us for our help all the time and then don't do anything in return when we help deliver the goods. So to me, we got to get, this is about recognition and about seeing people and giving them credit and then rewarding them for the job that has been done. And that's something that has always eluded Black women in particular and women of color in general. And so now we need to, you know, if you're really on the side of righteousness and you know, the Democrats' whole spiel is, oh, you know, they're like you know, they want to make a posse. They want to make a winning coalition because that's how they win, right? The GOP to me is about tricking in particular poor white people, poor uneducated white people, into believing they should vote for something even though it's not in their best interest, because they tread on all these tropes of racism and all that stuff to get them to think that they're better off by sticking with their own kind. And the Democrats, and that is obviously a problem for so many reasons we don't have to get into. The Democrats sort of foil to that is, well, we're just going to build a broad coalition so that we have strength in numbers, but when they win, it's still always the same old racket of like, oh, now we're just going to let the white people deal with it. And no, we're not going to actually open up the table. And so that's the problem with the Democrats. And if they claim to be on the side of righteousness, which they have for all this time, and they've made at least a bare minimum statement that like they wanted to have a woman of color on the ticket, and we wanted to get to a point in society where we could actually see a woman in this position. I think that is a powerful step just in terms of seeing it, and it means something. But now you actually have to put your money where your mouth is.
But you do. What do you think this administration is going to look like? I think, and not to harp on it, but when you mentioned Ice Cube, it made me think about Lil Wayne, and it made me think about comments from 50 Cent. But what about the black? Like, how do we get the black men that felt like that may feel some sort of way about a woman being a vice president, that didn't vote for Biden Harris because of that reason? Like, what do you tell those black men?
I don't know that you have to tell them anything, man. It's like you have to start to think about energy versus effort versus return on investment. So like we need to be focused on the future, right? And we need to be focused on, convincing all the people we can possibly convince that like things need to change. And I'm saying that as a citizen, not as like I said, as a person who's voted. Like we clearly have issues in this country. There's clearly racism. There's clearly problems with poverty. The rich are clearly getting stupid wealthy off of people's, we have an economy now where like the rich make more money when other people suffer a misfortune. And so we're in this weird thing where like we have this small group of people in the country who are are hopeful and or intending to cause misfortune because they can financially benefit from it, even though it puts other people in a hole. And so we got to get out of all of those. We got to get out of all those things. And I just feel like it's high time, based upon what we've seen in terms of the types of people we've seen running all the government and all these things, that we need to switch that up fundamentally and be like, we just need a totally different type of person. And the interesting thing about it is like, just a little other nugget from me. It's like, think about all the things that we say about the negative things you hear about black women as like a character trait or trope, like they're too aggressive, they're too pushy, like they speak too loud. They like, I could go on and on and on, but basically all of the things that people say about them is like, they're just like out of pocket and they're too much. And then if you just like mirror that list against all the things they say about successful white men, it's the exact same list. It's the exact same list on both sides. Aggressive, pushy, want their way, all of those things. So if we're saying that these are merits on one side, we can't say they're demerits on the other side. That should prevent us from wanting to share some of the power with the people who actually delivered those votes. And I think that's also a major issue with liberals, and like liberals got to get over that. White liberals got to get over it. Like they got to change their perspective, because I don't think in many cases they realize like that they're just like everyone else, man. They've been living in this country this entire time, and they've been brainwashed by these exact same, things. And so even though they may, have a liberal agenda and believe all these liberal things, they don't realize, what their preconceived notions are and what their internal prejudices are that they've grown up with. And I think in many cases, that's what also then causes the conflict, right? That's what then causes what we already know is a conflict between, black women and white women in particular, and et cetera, et cetera. But like that has to be changed. And that whole thing has to be reevaluated. And I think there is a large part of that is about, liberals having a real, excuse my language, come to Jesus moment with like who they are and where they came from and what their privilege is, and being okay to be like, I'd rather get a team win. I'd rather get a team win than be in charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, because the reality is when they've been in charge, it's been a total clown show.
Right. Twofold question before we wrap this up.
Oh, I
What
could
are
go
you?
on. We could go for hours. Look, I got the
Oh,
whiskey out. I'm ready.
oh, now you got the whiskey, but I got shit to do. Oh, so I'm like, I love these conversations with you. Um, what
Oh,
are
so
you?
sorry. I didn't even go through the rest of it. So my honest opinion is like I got a whole list of stuff I was telling you before.
Yeah.
One of the big ones to me is I think they need to deal with the student loan debt. So they need to dead this student loan
Yes.
debt or some portion of it. They need to get rid of that because that's just financial bondage,
Yeah,
right?
for
I think
sure.
they need to. I think they really need to deal with healthcare because you can look in any of these communities, a lot of urban communities, places where people are poor, how like it's so damaging when you not just that you don't have healthcare, but like when health is not dealt with in general. Like the difference between real simply kids who get to go to the doctor, twice a year for their checkup and kids who
Mm-hmm.
don't. Kids who get to go to the dentist and kids who don't. Kids who have people around them checking on their mental health and kids who don't. So they need to deal with this healthcare. If it was me, like I would destroy this whole healthcare system and I would make healthcare a total non-for-profit industry because how can you have the care of people's minds and bodies be a for-profit industry? It doesn't make any sense. It means you're always going to put profit over people's health. So to me, that's just like totally incorrectly instructed. I think they need to raise the minimum wage
Yeah.
because poor people ain't getting nothing out here and they
Mm-mm.
need better options. So those are the things that to me like stand out right away.
But they're heavy things. I think I just read. I don't know if you saw. I was on Twitter. The Supreme Court is not going to dismantle any of the Affordable Health Care Act that as far as like what 45 wanted to get done. And so it was just announced that they're going to keep there's certain rights that they're going to keep as far as like, like pre-existing conditions are fine. Yeah. So I know that was a big deal, but you're absolutely right. What are you at least hopeful for? Twofold. What are you looking forward to, at least in this administration? And then what support would you like to see for Black business owners like yourself? Because you are the co-founder of
Taste,
Taste,
select,
Select,
repeat.
Repeat, the modern
Okay.
liquor store. Go ahead.
Yes. So all right, I think to me, there's the major thing of having Kamala Harris be on the ticket is big. It's just like, look, man, Obama Obama was a great role model and presence for people to see, right? It changed the way people think about Black men and men of color. Now, he also deported mad people back to South and Central America, and he also bombed mad brown people in
See, I didn't
in
know
Asia.
that. Yeah.
Bombed them up like crazy, the drone king. So this is a Black man who took actions that maybe I would not take against other people worldwide, right? So like, but the bigger point was a lot of people got to see us in a different light. It turns out that he went from a more conservative Democrat to a more liberal Democrat, but he still did a lot of things that were like pretty conservative, middle of the road Democrat that didn't necessarily benefit people of color. Now, he did a lot of other stuff, Dreamers Act, healthcare. I could go on. He saved the whole economy. There's all this other stuff that he did do, and credit where credit is due to that. But it's not like he was like Bernie Sanders, crazy liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but just having to be able to see it and the role model situation, I think was a major benefit. So that with the Kamala Harris situation to me is a really big deal. Like even the day after, we got up and we were talking about it with my kids and my daughter was walking around, she put on her glasses and she said, yes, I've been appointed as the president of kids. And I'm like writing up so like just having seen the speeches, watched the TV, talked about it, it clicked in her head as an 8-year-old that like being the president of kids or the president of anything was a real possibility. So there's something to be said for that. And there's something to be said for that in terms of what you grow up with and what you see. You can't be it if you don't see it, is
Mm-hmm.
what I always hear people say. So that to me is like, is a very big thing. The rest of it, I mean, I obviously want to see people come together. I don't know how we're going to bridge the gap. I fundamentally believe it's going to be Black women leading and also Black women and white women trying to figure out something. And I'm not putting it on any one group. I think in most cases, like I said earlier, white liberals and white people have to understand their preconceived notions when they're dealing with Black people, in particular Black women, and be prepared to listen and be prepared to understand that they carry themselves differently, but those things are not negative, right? And be prepared to be in a scenario where they, may be taking direction from a woman of color. That's something that they got to be prepared with and own up to, that they are willing to try it out and see what happens. I mean, but for me, I'm in my mid-40s, I got kids, and like, I just feel like my role in society has changed. And if at one point I was like on some super pro-Black radical mix, I don't necessarily know that that's me anymore. And it's not that I don't have certain views about equality. I just don't know that that's like where that I'm that piece in the puzzle. I'm a different piece in the puzzle. I'm a piece in the puzzle where like my job is to set an example for either people who look like me to be like, oh, wow, like doing what you're doing, that's attainable. I've never seen anyone do that before. Or people I do business with who are like, wow, I've never seen someone like you before. And as it turns out, you're a competent and capable businessman. And because of you, we're all making money. So for me, it's like, I just want to continue to set a good example with what I do, how I carry myself, how I conduct my business, like what I've created, the services I bring, the creativity to it. And like, I want to continue, like, it's important to have a good reputation in that regard and have people see that. And then I also want to continue to do what I've always done, I think, in my business career, which is facilitate opportunities for people to try new things. And so in that case, like, I hope this administration thinks about some of these things going on in a different way in terms of leveling the playing field. Like, I don't need to not have Aunt Jemima syrup and Uncle Ben's rice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that shit is irrelevant. What I need is for, the government to say, hey, you know what? It's really hard for people of color to get loans, mortgages. So we should have some kind of program where instead of having to have 20% down, you can get 10% down, right? They need to look at like how business loans are doled out. Now, right now, like you can't get a business loan for nothing because of COVID, but we need to think about all of these minority-owned businesses and how we can really have intelligent loan programs for them with low interest rates and that are really accessible. Because I keep hearing people saying these programs are out there, but I don't know a lot of people who have been able to access them. I know Ruth Chris Steakhouse got a bunch of money, but like,
right.
I don't know that Mikey's Ice Cream on 133rd and Frederick Douglass got any money.
Yeah.
So, I really want to see them pinpoint areas where the government, where they can really be effective and like to level the playing field. And unfortunately, I think that means that like they got to go back, and the Democrats have to go back and win these seats in Georgia because Mitch McConnell and all these cats, and you've seen them all, like I said, you've seen them all on TV. They're sitting there saying, 1, we're not going to change. 2, we're not going to budge. And 3, we need to have a seat at the table if you want to fix anything. And that's never going to be a road to progress. They're going to be able to say, we're actually just going to do it. We're just going to go around you. Like what you can do is go sit over there at the end of the table. You can be the first one to get up and get a sandwich and get your soda while the meeting is going on and people are talking business, because your power is limited and we're going to be able to do these things without you. Because I think if you're waiting on those people, like it's never going to get done. And ultimately, I was to look at it in a weird and crazy way, like I ultimately want to see the Democrats become like the Republicans. I want to see the Republicans die out and the Democrats become the Republicans. And then people who have, newer, younger, I want to see newer, younger, better, smarter, more technology driven ideas, in government, just like you see it in the marketplace, so that, we got to start to think about, next gen and the gen after that. And, people my age and older, like we're hitting that tipping point where we can barely function on social media. Never mind figure out like what's going to be the next thing that's going to help us like move forward in this new world. Like we don't even know the slang anymore. So how are we going to like help fix people's lives? So we can't even tell you what no cap means. So, I mean, I can, but
I know you can, but
that's the point.
That you're making,
it's got to be moving forward about fresh, new ideas, and it's got to be about empowering those people, and it's got to be about giving credit and opportunity to the people who are actually delivering the results.
Yes, shout out to Sonia Hunt. Let's get things done. I want to see them put in the work that supports us getting things done. And I know Hood Somalia had some other comments too. Okay, lastly, what's next? Clearly, I felt like you answered part of it.
World domination, Wu-Tang. No, I'm kidding. Well, we started our business this year. It was really complicated. It took about 2 to 3 times the amount of time I thought it would to get the proper licensing. Obviously, I'm in a business where I'm buying product where it requires a license for you to buy it and sell it. And so it took a while to get that done because COVID basically shut down these government offices. And then on top of that, not only did it take longer to do that, but just like the whole supply chain stuff is messed up. So going to it, actually, you know, part of what I do is we go to distilleries, we meet the people there, we try the whiskey, we pick the thing, we do the content, we put it up, we do all that stuff. Now it's like when travel is limited and messed up, that puts a monkey wrench in just simply procuring the product. And then once you've even procured the product, you know, you have these scenarios where like just getting it to you and when they're going to get it and how they're going to do it, even that stuff is messed up. So it's been a pretty difficult year to get started, but I was able to, you know, get this plane off the ground and we're flying, and we've got a ton of people signed up and people on the waiting list, and people like what we're doing. They like the product we're putting out. And so I want to continue doing that. And next year I'm going to expand. We're going to add barware and other things that are, you know, in the same space I'm in. So you'll be able to get, you know, Glencairn glasses like that, or, you know, mixing spoons, and, you know, all of these sorts of things on site. So we're going to add that, and then we're going to add more spirits, and the store will be put together in a different way than most liquor stores, so that it actually helps people figure out like what they should get, what they need for the occasion that they're under, or the thing they're trying to deal with, and then therefore what they should get. So it's going to take some time to get there because, like I said, like we're backed up, just, you know, because of all this stuff. So it's going to take some time to get there, and it's going to be a slow build. But hopefully by the end of, you know, when we're having this conversation next year on, you know, whatever it is, November 10th right now, 2021. Right. I'll be able to say to you, when I last talked to you, I was in phase 1, and now I'm in phase 3, and all these things that we wanted to do are actually happening.
I love it. I love it. What's the website? How can they find you on Instagram and your, you know?
You can find me on Instagram at Neat Rocks Cocktail, the way that I like to drink my whiskey, neat on the rocks with a cocktail. Somebody I know never actually even looked at my profile, gave it any thought. Over at my house drinking margaritas, though, that I made.
Ooh,
so, and then, so you can find me on Instagram, Neat Rocks Cocktail, and then our website is tasteselectrepeat.com. And, you know, people can go there and poke around. They can see, you know, it'll show you all the stuff we've done, places we've been, write-ups on all the bottles we've dropped over the last few years. And they can sign up and get a membership, which is free, if they want access to the barrel picks and stuff like that. So tasteselectrepeat.com, or on Instagram, Neat Rocks Cocktail.
And just so you all know, this is not a random conversation with Orlando Lima. We actually did an episode on Black and Nuanced and HD. Go to Black Nuanced Pod on my Instagram. Oh, you have a copy of it. Did you post it? Are you going to post it on your stuff?
I posted it. Yo, you saw, I totally blew my post yesterday, though. I put it up and it was like I didn't like the assets that I was sent by your production team.
Sir.
I need squares, all squares. I need all squares, yeah.
What did I send you?
You sent me like a landscape and a square.
I said, right, because for the episodes, you need the vertical, and then
I need double square. Boom, boom.
I did fine with it. I mean,
this is, I'm just proving my point that I was saying earlier about why we need younger, newer people in this situation, because I'm over here telling you I can't even figure out how to do the square image and the horizontal video in one post. So this is I'm just proving my point. You'll never see me on TikTok. You ain't gonna find me on Twitch. You ain't got hood. It's
He's so needy. He's so needy.
You know, hood. Oh, it's needy. I'm needy. I'm needy. Yo, every time
Joyce. What's up, Joyce? Yes, my friend's laughing at you because I could tell you how to do all the things. You upload it from your computer and ask for a vertical, cover photo, and then the square.
Look, I'm just talent. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Fine.
I'm just talent.
That's fine. I will tell you how to find all
Does Denzel Washington have to print up his own scripts?
we can't use Denzel as an example because that's just, he's in a different stratosphere than what's going on.
He's like, I'm like right here, and he's like right here.
Oh my gosh.
It's like so close. It's like right, like the top of this. If I grew my hair out, it would almost be equal. Okay, no, but yeah. That's so funny. Yes, I messed up my post was my point, but yeah, I listened to the pod. I've sent it all around. I think the episode is really great, and it's, you know, in my opinion, it's not just because it's like, you know, me and what I got to say in my opinion, but to me, these are conversations that you and I have been having since we worked together at Viacom, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, and we have continued to, you know, advance these conversations. And I think there are important things for people to listen to, in particular for people who, you know, don't know us or don't know people that look like us. I think it's important for them to just listen and hear it and get a new perspective.
Absolutely. And when I get this cut, I'll send it to you so you can post it properly. Just saying.
Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna send you my information and then you can post it.
I mean, I can, but you'll just have to rewrite because like the copy in your voice sounds better.
I know my voice is, you know.
I mean, whatever. Oh, thank you as always. I want to come up for some more dinner, so you let me know when you'd have me.
Anytime. You know, anytime. You know where to find me. White Harlem.
I do.
White Harlem, right over here, gentrified.
Y'all hear that? White Harlem, and he's been talking like this.
Yo, they're blowing up my property values. It's awesome, yo. I love these white people who come in the neighborhood and like rent the properties, man. They're just.
I love these white people coming in.
Yeah, when they just come in, they rent the property. Like, you know, I don't like when they hold up the line at like the fish spot because they like don't know what to get, as if like the joint hasn't been there for 1,000 years. It's like, yo, the menu at this place has like 6 items and it hasn't changed in like 30 years. Like boom. That's the part that annoys me. But other than that, like, you know,
you're good.
It's great to have them here in the community.
Get off my IGTV. Tell Anna I said hello, the kids.
Of course.
All right.
Good job. I love the pod. Everyone should.
Thank you. I'm gonna repost the things. I'm gonna tell them where to find the things.
I feel like you're gonna like take that little snippet where I just said everyone should listen to the pod, and you're gonna like reuse it, like when they do, like when the DJs would do. Somebody would come on the show and say something. Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Funk Master Flex Night. Hard to get a ticket. Remember that?
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. That's hilarious. No, I'm not going to use your audio clip to say that.
It's okay.
Because it's fine.
Whatever you need.
That's fine. No, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Okay. All right. Peace. Bye.